Before I get this started today, I really wanted to highlight something that I came across on social media from our former Heritage Minister and Environment Minister, Deputy PM of Canada, the Honourable Sheila Copps. She wrote, actually, that there's not young female conservatives here. Actually, I'll quote her. She said, "Can't figure out why virtually no young women are visible at the Conservative convention in Calgary." So I'm just wondering, ladies, if you want to stand up, quickly make yourself known, because we do exist. I don't know, Sheila. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of us. Don't worry, I have people in the crowd doing that for me. I'm Jasmin Laine. Thank you so much, of course, for being here. You know, I often have people ask me, what is your story? And why is it that you got involved in politics? And while it certainly is not the happiest of stories, it's one I've spoken of many times, the truth is that it was grief. It was life-altering, personality-changing grief. And in my darkest moments, that was where somehow through the grace of God, grief was turned into purpose. Talking about politics at that point in time in my life stopped being abstract, it stopped being risky, because it really did become a moral obligation. Because in some way, shape, or form, politics affects each and every one of us. It shapes our futures, it determines our opportunity, it structures our lives. And it really does determine all the things that we have access to as citizens in a nation. And right now, people can feel that something has gone very wrong. And they don't feel that because the media told them. They don't feel that because a politician explained it well, but because real life has become harder. Real life has become more expensive and more constrained. And the stories that we are told about why that do not match real life. For years, people have been told that if you are struggling, it's because you just need to work harder. Or, of course, one of my personal favorites, it's a global phenomenon. If you're angry, it's because you're misinformed. And if you question the direction and data of this government and how conflicting all of that is, it must be because you're hateful, you're fearful, or you're just unintelligent, right? And this gaslighting, it doesn't just make people doubt facts, it makes them doubt themselves. It's designed that way. It's designed to isolate you, to make you feel ashamed, to make you self-censor, and to make you believe that you are alone. And once you believe all of those things, that's when you stop talking about it. But I want you to take a moment to look around this room. You are not alone. We are witnessing right now, it's not left versus right. It's actually just right versus wrong. And that is something that the Conservative Party of Canada and Pierre Poilievre, under his leadership, they have been signaling. They've been ahead of the curve to this for so long. It's we the people versus a ruling class that no longer lives under the consequences of the policies they impose. It's the technocrats and the credentialed elites versus every other person, each and every one of us expected to quietly absorb the cost. They speak in abstractions, but you live in reality. They talk about transitions, and you deal with the price tag and the consequences of their failure. But there is something that has become so incredibly clear. They are afraid. And they're not afraid of anger, certainly. They're not afraid of protests. In fact, those may actually work in their favor from time to time. And they're definitely not afraid of slogans, especially three-word slogans, build, baby, build. Anybody? They're really afraid of truth spoken plainly. You know, in Mark Carney's book, Values, which I highly recommend everybody read, and if you don't want to support him, you don't want him to get those royalties, fair enough, go and support your local library by taking it out then. Because he has several chapters that actually reference how elites of the world are losing public trust and how that they must work to restore it. And why is that? Well, because once people see clearly, fear stops working. That's why the smears against us never stop, and the labels continue to multiply. Because when they can't defend their record, they attack your character. When they can't point to improvement, they point fingers at the people asking for proof of it. And when they can't show results, they manufacture villains. They know something else too, though, that the most powerful, diverse, and consequential generation in this country is young people. And young people are not buying what they are selling. And that's not because they're progressive or conservative. Actually, in some cases, they're not even political. But they are living in the reality of bad policy. They see that debt is not compassionate, that dependency absolutely strips you of your dignity, that censorship is not for anyone's protection on the ground. And they understand that real success comes from opportunities and progress, not headlines, and certainly not how many people a government program claims to cover. That is not leadership, and it certainly is not even close to being on the right track. And the audacity for this Liberal government to tell us that we need to sacrifice more. It'll be worth it, though, by 2030, they say. It's so funny how that just keeps getting pushed back, because I remember them saying that back in 2015. It's almost as though they don't realize that our young people have made the biggest sacrifices in decades in our country's history. Sacrificing home ownership, the chance to be employed in a career that you love, having children, affording your dream wedding. How many people grew up with that? You'd make your Pinterest boards of all these things that you were so excited about for your future. And those are hard to achieve now. You're lucky if you achieve them. The ability to work hard and have the world be your oyster, because that was the dream that this great nation once promised them. We don't want to sacrifice anymore. We do not need to sacrifice anymore, especially not for an end goal that can't even be explained to us. We deserve honesty, and honesty is the conservative advantage. So when Pierre Poilievre says things like, "You don't have to live like this," hope is on the way, it hits people a little bit differently, as the truth often does. It resonates. It doesn't need to be explained with big words for you to understand, only to find yourself still not understanding and feeling really confused and kind of disjointed because the rhetoric does not match the reality. As I frequently joke, if you ever watch my content, if somebody has to explain to me why something makes sense, it's probably because it doesn't. Conservatives, we have been Team Canada, promising hope, prosperity, sovereignty way before it was trendy. In fact, we were then vilified for doing that, and now all of a sudden, it's funny how we have the exact same standpoint and we're still vilified today for those same principles. And what about this liberal government? It's pretty obvious, judging by the media headlines or how almost every single press release posted on the Prime Minister's website starts off with dangerous, divided, uncertain world. They use fear, they use panic, and they manufacture vulnerability in order to justify more control. But a government whose policies make you more dependent on them no longer serves. It owns. And Canadians are tired of being treated like spectators in their own country. We are tired of being ignored and called names while we are actually just crying out for help. Contrary to what many media headlines would want you to believe, conservatism at its core has nothing to do with anger or whining or being negative. It's actually just about some simple things like responsibility, accountability, and conserving liberty. It means trusting people with the truth, even when sometimes they don't want to hear it or it's uncomfortable. Because dignity begins with honesty, and you cannot heal as an individual, a community, let alone as a nation, when you avoid reality and keep trying to mitigate the symptom to buy you some more time while continuously avoiding the cause. What happens in those situations, as we are experiencing right now, is that the cause continues to get worse and worse and worse, and there's only so many Band-Aids that you can put on that thing. The conservative advantage is not endless promises, it's realism. Because we don't ask people to pretend that failure is progress. We say, you do not have to accept decline as some unavoidable force of nature, because it's not. And anybody who is trying to manipulate you into thinking that it is wrong. And watch how those in power behave when that truth gets close. When it turns out that, shocker, carbon taxes do indeed make life less affordable. That money printing causes inflation, and sure, there's a lot of nuance there, but it does. And that investments and productivity drop when you have too much red tape, too big a bureaucracy, and approvals that take up to a decade before shovels are even in the ground. Notice in those moments what it is that becomes front page news and what quietly disappears. Notice how often personalities matter more than outcomes. They don't ask, are people actually better off because of this? They ask, well, how was his tone? Because once you start measuring success by results, their entire illusion collapses. We've also been sold another lie, that compliance equals virtue, that doing what you're told automatically makes you a good person, and repeating approved lines absolves you from responsibility, that saying something enough times, it must make it true. But are you a good person when you have to lie to your people? Are you a good person when you omit details, when you cherry pick data, or when you insult half of the country who didn't vote for you just to look morally superior? Real goodness does not require silencing and shaming others simply because they support a legal political party in a democratic nation. Real goodness doesn't require strategic absence of important details in order to be accepted. Truth does not need coercion. And many people in this room know this because they've lived it. I remember it when I was a kid, living in a time when debate was a productive tool to get to the best possible outcome for the most amount of people, when disagreement wasn't dehumanizing, when diversity included one of the most important diversities that is around, and it's one that they never seem to talk about: diversity of thought. That old liberal party simply does not exist anymore, and it hasn't for a long time. And if you doubt that, just listen to how they talk to you, asking you to celebrate another $9 billion in borrowed money for a GST rebate that doesn't solve a single affordability problem. And that is exactly why being honest about these realities is always met with so much viciousness. Truth, it exposes the gap between what they promised and what you're left living with. And while I know that all of this is so frustrating to listen to, and it feels like banging your head against the wall some days, I really do want to encourage you to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. Be calm, be courageous, be steady, be kind, and be intentional. Know the data, know the facts, and be strategic in how you help those around you become more informed about the issues that truly matter, the ones that improve the quality of life for all of us, because good policy should make life better, not decide who is better. That is the conservative advantage. Don't get distracted by the noise. Don't let the smears pull you off course, because they will omit details. If you've been following some of the stories over the last couple of days, I'm sure you've had a few moments like myself where you just want to break your TV, perhaps. They will use your emotions against you. And I really want you to remember this moment. Remember what it felt like to see through the fog. Remember what it felt like to stand shoulder to shoulder with people who refuse to be gaslit and refuse to accept less after paying more. Truth is on your side, and truth has endurance. And to leave you with one final thought, there is a very real battle happening right now. We see it every single time that we scroll comment sections on social media, every time we listen to certain pundits on the news, and every single time somebody starts calling you names and using ad hominem attacks when they can't back up their opinion with factual data. It's one that deliberately turns people against one another, one that makes good people doubt themselves, and quietly whispers, "Why bother? What's the point? Nothing is ever going to change anyway. It doesn't matter." Have you ever once heard a liberal say the system is broken and I don't vote? But I bet you've heard conservatives say that. In fact, I bet some of you are in this room today. That feeling is not accidental. And you know, a dear friend of mine once asked me a very simple question. If an institution is rotten, what do you do? Do you burn it down, or do you get involved and reform it from the inside? The answer is always the same. You get involved. Because hope is never lost. So long as people are willing to hold on to it, hope is the one thing that no politician can take from you. And please remember that the power of the people must never be forgotten or underestimated, because democracy only works when it is about you, not institutions, not elites, not narratives, you. And I know how frustrating it can be. I know that it can leave you to feel kind of hopeless sometimes. I feel that too. But I see you, and I hear you. And even if we have never met before, I love you, and I need you to keep going, because you are not alone, and you are not radicalized because your gut tells you something isn't right, and you do some research on your own only to learn that your gut was onto something. Your instincts matter a lot. And the only people who want you to believe that truth is crazy are the people who are terrified of it spreading. I know that we are not hopeless. I know that because of this room, the hands that I've shaken, the pictures I've taken, and all of the beautiful people I've been able to meet over the last few days. Look at the people beside you, and remember the conversations you've had in the hallways, because every single person here carries a story. Some of those are stories of hardship, perseverance, getting yourself out of some of the deepest, darkest holes you did not know possible, or needing a friend to help pull you out. Hope is really everything. And I just really want to leave you with, when the mischaracterizations get loud, when the media says the most ridiculous things to try and scare people away from conservatism, remember this moment, because this room is the opposite of everything they tell you conservatism is. Let's keep our eyes on the bigger picture. The small disagreements, we can work through all of that later. You know, of course, there's lots of things to discuss and debate about, but right now, the biggest battle ahead of us is winning, and we truly only do that together. And I also, it's fine, you can clap, I'll allow it. I also just wanted to say thank you as well from the bottom of my heart. I started my political journey really not that long ago, just a few years ago. And it's been so beautiful to be welcomed with open arms the way that I have, and to have so many young people and young women in particular who come up to me all the time. And I just encourage all of you to just be kind and learn, and to educate those around you in a way that they can understand, and to not resort to the same name calling that they're trying to smear you with. And to every single person who has ever doubted me or criticized me, dehumanized me, and done what they could to discredit me, thank you, because thanks to you, I'm here.